Day in and day out, strikes and counter strikes continue across the Gulf. The US attacks Iran, Iran fires back, and it keeps on happening in a loop. But what if the latest wave of Iranian strikes wasn't just about revenge? What if the missiles launched towards American interests and Gulf nations was sending another message? One not aimed at Washington, but at Tehran itself. Sounds interesting and confusing at the same time, right? Well, don't be puzzled and watch this very video till the end to understand what's actually happening inside Iran. And we bet it's far more consequential than the flying drones and missiles. Well, over the past few days, the world has largely viewed the renewed confrontation through a familiar lens. America strikes Iran, Iran retaliates, tension escalates, and the Middle East inches closer to another regional war. But inside Iran, another battle may be unfolding. According to US media reports, hardline factions in Iran have accused President Masoud Pezeshkian and several other senior officials of attempting what they describe as a soft coup after negotiations with the United States. Well, these allegations have ignited fierce debate within Iran's political establishment, and the timing of it has raised certain questions. Why did the accusations of soft coup emerge immediately after the diplomatic deal? Why did hardliners suddenly turn their fires inward? And could Iran's renewed military offensive have served another purpose, which is projecting strength abroad while reinforcing unity at home? So that is why in today's edition of From the News Desk, we will talk about what is known and what is being reported, what are these allegations, and why Iran's internal power struggle may be just as important as war everyone is watching right now. For years, Iran's political system has balanced competing centers of power. On one side are officials who argue that diplomacy, even with adversaries, can reduce pressure on Iran's economy and preserve the Islamic Republic. On the other hand are the hardliners who believe compromise invites weakness and the resistance is essential to regime survival. And when the negotiations with the US gained momentum, these divisions sharpened. Soon after the agreement, hardline figures reportedly accused President Pezeshkian, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, and Parliamentary Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf of engineering a soft coup. Well, not through tanks in the streets, but by shifting the balance of power through diplomacy and political influence. Well, the fact that such accusations surfaced publicly reveals how deeply fractured the establishment may have become after the death of Ali Khamenei. When people hear the word coup, they imagine soldiers surrounding government buildings, but soft coup is something very different. It basically means an effort to alter political control through institutions, elite alliances, public messaging, or bureaucratic maneuvering rather than overt military forces. In this case, hardliners suggest that moderates were using diplomacy with Washington to reshape Iran's future and reduce the influence of revolutionary faction. Well, whether that characterization is accurate remains very disputed, but the accusation itself is politically significant. Because in a system like Iran, where legitimacy rests on revolutionary ideas, being branded as someone who is quietly dismantling those ideas can be as damaging as being accused of treason. Now remember, no institution has shaped modern Iran more than the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The IRGC is far more than a military force. It commands elite units, oversees strategic arsenal capabilities, influences foreign operations, and has substantial political and economic influence. For decades, it has also presented itself as a guardian of the Islamic Revolution. Well, that is why some analysts ask whether periods of heightened external confrontation can also strengthen the IRGC's position domestically. Well, history shows that governments facing external threats often rally public support around national security. But that does not prove that latest escalation was intended just for domestic political purposes. Although it helps explain why the overlap between foreign conflict and internal political tension is drawing such attention worldwide. Now, the sequence of events has become the focus of intense discussion. First came diplomacy, then came accusations of a soft coup. Soon after, Iran resumed military operation against American military infrastructure and tensions spread across the Gulf. Now, let's be very clear here. correlation does not establish causation. Military actions may have been driven primarily by battlefield calculation, deterrence, and retaliation for previous strikes. Yet political analysts often ask whether governments can pursue multiple objectives at once. Could a show of strength abroad also strengthen cohesion at home? Could renewed confrontation make internal dissent more difficult? Well, these questions remain open, well, at least for now. Now, at the center of the storm stands a man who is barely seen, Mujtaba Khamenei, the new supreme leader whose silence and absence have become the raw material of conspiracy. Hardliners who once championed his rise now accuse the leadership surrounding him of staging a coup against him, using his name while stripping him of power. Some even now suggest he is incapacitated, turning him into a symbol without agency, and higher, whose authority exists mostly on paper while council and president rule in practice. On the flip side, others argue he is being deliberately insulated, kept in the shadow so that unpopular decisions can be blamed on compromisers and negotiators while the institution of the supreme leader remains formally untarnished. Well, in either case, Mujtaba's invisibility is a strategic asset and a strategic risk as well. It allows the regime to preserve the myth of unbroken power while testing new configurations of power. But at the same time, it also fuels the narrative that Iran is being ruled by a ghost government where decisions about war with the United States, confrontation with the Gulf nations, and the IRGC's rule of engagement are taken by men whose responsibility has never been put directly to the popular test. Now, throughout history, governments under internal pressure have sometimes used external crisis to reinforce national unity. Political scientists refer to this as rally around the flag effect. Citizens who disagree on domestic issues often unite when facing a perceived external threat. This phenomenon has appeared in many countries and under many political systems. Well, that does not mean every conflict is initiated for domestic reasons. But it is one reason analysts examine whether external escalation can also reshape internal political dynamics. Now, applied to Iran, the question becomes, was the latest offensive solely about responding to attacks? Or did it also help consolidate hardline authority at a moment of intense political friction? Now, military operations communicate with multiple audiences. A missile fired towards an adversary may deter that adversary. It may also reassure domestic supporters. It may demonstrate resolve to rival factions. And it also may signal institutional strength to political elites. Well, if the IRGC wanted to emphasize that it remains indispensable to Iran's security, a forceful response would naturally reinforce that very image. Well, this was the primary objective, or simply a consequence remains uncertain, but it illustrates why military actions often have political meanings beyond the battlefield. As I mentioned earlier, also the headlines focus on exploding drones, missile strikes, and growing confrontation between Iran and the United States. Yet beneath those headlines lies another story, one unfolding inside the power corridors in Tehran. Like I also mentioned, hardliners have accused senior officials of a soft coup. Moderate reject such characterization. The IRGC continues to project military strength. Now, the question about the supreme leader also continues to linger. At present, there is no definitive information proving that a secret coup attempt triggered Iran's latest offensive, but the accusations themselves reveal that Iran may be experiencing one of its most significant internal political struggles in years. And now, looking at the current situation, it seems that the most consequential battles are not only fought across the borders, they are fought within governments, institutions, and competing visions of nations' future. Now, at the end, as missile streaks across the skies of the Middle East, another contest may be unfolding behind closed doors, one over who will shape the next chapter of the Islamic Republic. And until more evidence emerges, the question remains open. Was the latest offensive simply another chapter in the conflict with America, or was it also a warning shot in Iran's own struggle of power? Well, only time and perhaps the secretive politics of Tehran will provide the answers once the dust of war settles over the Islamic Republic of Iran. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm Yash Goyal signing off for Times Now Digital. Until next time, take care and keep watching this space for more such videos.